Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's Friday. I started 30 seconds early, but I'm hoping that there's this delay. And oh, that's me. I don't hear myself. Welcome. It's Friday. Welcome to Recovery Direct. Today we've got a topic: 5 ways to honor yourself this weekend. Five really interesting ways one can think about honoring oneself this weekend. But I want to say hello and welcome to everyone. If you're new to the stream, please say hello in the chat. It's good to have you here. If you're a regular, welcome back. We're now on YouTube. We will be cross streaming to more platforms shortly, but welcome. It's Friday. You made it. It's the end of the week, and hopefully I can share something with you today that'll maybe put the cherry on top of the weekend. A way to honor ourselves. But you're very welcome. All of those of you that are new, please say something in the chat. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it's great to have you all here. And I like to start all these sessions off with a sense of an intention, a way to hold the session, a way to frame the session. And I think that today it's really important to consider our deep humanity. If we're talking about 5 ways to really honor oneself, and not just on the weekend, but whenever, one has to first start with the understanding of our deep humanity. And to that end, I've chosen like the intention, which I always end off with, if you know me well, is that you are beautiful. You are beautiful. My story, my achievements, my losses, my joys, my fears, my mistakes, my redemptions, all of this is me. And all of this is deeply human and beautiful. And I want you to hold that in your heart and in your heads for this weekend. And in fact, I would invite you to hold that forever, within. Hold the fact that your narrative is beautiful, that you would have made mistakes, that there are parts of you that you'd rather kind of run and hide from, but everything, all of it, the joy and the pain is all part of who we are. And that makes us deeply, deeply human and absolutely beautiful. So that's how I'd like to hold today's session. And again, please, if you want to share something about the topic, if you want to say hello, if you got a random kind of idea that you want to throw out, please, you're welcome to. This is a very community-based platform, and I think that it's important that we connect, and that's why it's called Recovery Direct. Connect on a Friday. So, as promised, the topic today is very straightforward. The topic today is 5 ways to honor yourself this weekend. Now, this shouldn't just be this weekend, of course. This should be a way to honor yourself at any point in time. But I often find that on the weekends we can slow down from a lot of the other tasks. Sometimes we can't. Sometimes there's more to do. And we tend to overload ourselves. But in many ways, one can choose on the weekend to really take an initiative and an action to honor ourselves. And this is puzzling, I think, for some people, because what is to honor oneself? I mean, there's a very simple definition of honoring oneself, and that is to regard with great respect. That is to honor with great respect. And of course, it comes down to how we've been treated growing up. It comes down to how we felt in our adolescence, in our vocation, with our partners. And to honor oneself is to apply that sense of respect towards oneself, and to know that we are immensely valuable and worthy. And so I hope these 5 kind of tips can go a long way this weekend to try and help with that. So I suppose let's just jump in, right? I think the first thing I want to tell you, the first tip, is practice self-parenting. Now, this is quite unusual because we often have gripes when our partners if we're an adult, if our adult parents also try and parent us. But the idea of self-parenting is to correct a lot of messages that may not work for us, that may not be true, that we may have internalized, a dialogue that we speak to ourselves in. And in some ways, we need to create an alliance partner inside our own psyches to look after us and to help us be our own best friend. And there are a few tips that one can do around this and a few ways to operationalize it in the world. And the first is to really identify the kind of parenting that you were experiencing growing up. There's neglectful, permissive, authoritarian. And what we need to do is we need to identify what that was. It might be straightforward. Well, I had a very authoritarian parent. Or perhaps I had a very permissive kind of upbringing, could do whatever I wanted. And the ground was smoothed for me at every corner. And what we need to do is, once we've identified which of these styles was predominantly in our childhoods, our self-parent will become one that in some ways counters or offers where the missing gaps were, offers information to help us cope. And I'm going to get into some of those messages now so we can fully understand that. The second is to use the outer child visualization to enable compassion. And this is a way of self-parenting yourself in stressful situations. I give the example that I had in my own psychoanalysis when I was very, very highly strung and I had a deadline to get to, and I was driving my car and I was being a bit of a madman and kind of very stressed and super anxious and getting irate with myself. Adine, good to see you. Yay, I get to go to chat. Oh, where have you gone? There we go. Hello. This is the new YouTube chat box, by the way, everyone. Nadine, good to have you here. Welcome. Welcome to this very pointed 5 tips for honoring yourself this weekend. So this outer child visualization is very straightforward. And in the situation where I was in my car and I was rushing, the visualization is very simple. In that moment, you put a significant other in the space to see what's happening. So the idea behind this is a very simple visualization. I suddenly imagine myself as a small child, maybe a 5-6-year-old child sitting next to me, terrified by this crazy pent-up, angry, driving kind of lunatic. And then when I see that child full of fear for how this other human being is behaving, I get a sense of being outside of myself, and I get a moment to de-stress and to reparent myself. Because the compassion I have for that invisible outer child sitting next to me suddenly fills me with a sense of perspective of how my feelings have maybe overrun myself. And this is self-parenting. Sure, in this visualization, you're using an external metaphor to get it done, but in other ways, you can also use it for many different situations. For example, if you're rushing towards a meeting, imagine a little kid with you, kind of terrified at this human being that's so kind of aggressive and kind of flighty. And this visualization works really well. Of course, the other thing to do when you practice self-parenting is be in an alliance with yourself. Take a sidebar with yourself and move away from a situation and have yourself as a compassionate friend. So, for example, if you're at an event and you're feeling kind of low and feeling kind of unloved and uninvolved, but feel like no one's paying attention to you, maybe there's feelings of self-esteem that are quite low, have a sidebar with yourself. Be in an alliance. Pull yourself out of that situation. Go for a second and self-parent. Talk to yourself and say, imagine that you're a parent, countering the styles, which I'll get to now. And you say, I know this party is difficult for you. I know there's a lot of anxiety. I wonder what small things you can do to maybe kind of try and enjoy the environment and try and say hello to 1 or 2 people. Can you hear? I've chosen to create an alliance of myself, and I've taken a sidebar to be able to sit with myself and say, this is what I would tell someone else who is struggling in this position. And that's what self-parenting is, because we have lots of really good advice for our friends and family, but when it comes to ourselves, we don't know how to operationalize that. To operationalize that is in fact to practice self-parenting, to take a sidebar. And these are the 3 different styles of parenting you may have come across in childhood. There's authoritarian, neglectful, and permissive. And I want to give you a few things you can maybe write down if you want to, as some messages to self-parent. Here are some counter messages to self-parent. You can write them down, you can put them on your fridge with magnets. I am worthy and immensely lovable. This is important if you've grown up with an authoritarian parenting where output is equal to love and acceptance. Success is a measure of success and nothing else. Output is not an indicator of worth. Output, what you put out in the world and your achievements, is not an indicator of your worth. You're a spectacular human being. Just making it in this grand scheme of things on this planet in some ways should be celebrated. Compliance, being compliant, is not a requirement for acceptance and love. That's a very good self-parenting message to have. Vulnerability may be a great challenge because I might have become very independent if I had authoritarian parents. So vulnerability, leaning in, telling people when I'm struggling, it is a huge challenge if I've had that kind of parenting, because those voices would have gone unheard. But it is hugely rewarding. Remember, these are the self-parenting messages. And you have a right to check in with others on your competencies or for assistance or to simply express oneself. And you don't have to do it alone. So these are the kind of self-parenting messages. If I look at my childhood and I grew up with authoritarian parents, this is the kind of thing, the kind of messages that will work really well. And I'm going to go quickly through the other 2 as well. If I had permissive parenting, in other words, boundaries were fast and loose, and the road was smoothed ahead, it might be difficult to handle big emotions. So the self-parenting narrative would be, it is okay that your emotions get big. Reach out when they do. A no from someone else is not the end. It's not the end of the world. It is not like give it all up. It is the beginning, perhaps, of a point of a conversation. Failure is just as important as success. And if I've had a permissive upbringing where things have come quite easily because people have just kind of smoothed the path for me, then I might have a very difficult time with resilience. And so understand that failure is just an extra notch on the way to something better and something greater. It's not the end. And design very simple schedules. If you're going to self-parent, design yourself a very simple schedule for yourself. And know that things may frustrate one easily, but not because one is limited. But build repetition and you will build resilience. And for the final one, if I had neglectful or uninvolved parent, the kind of self-parenting messages that you could do while you're honoring yourself this weekend is you could say, we are stronger with others, not weaker. Of course, the neglected child will become fiercely independent probably. So this is a good self-parenting one to say, actually, other people, having them around can be a good thing. Vulnerability, like with authoritarian, is a great challenge but hugely rewarding. And tell people what's going on for you, even when you think they don't care. And this is a very good self-parenting tip. You're standing there, you're keeping it all to yourself, take a sidebar, go, you're stressing. You let people know. You see, I'm self-parenting, I'm using the new narrative to create a new style of internalized dialogue for myself. And make time gently to engage in social events, which is very important. So that's it for the first tip. The second tip is around moving. And this one might seem quite obvious, but the second tip to honor yourself is to move, to literally move, to get up and move, to exercise or to yoga or to do breathing exercises, but to create some kind of movement. And the reasons are quite clear why this is self-honoring, because the first is it's a key to wellness. Our systems are metabolic. They need to be in flux. They need to change. They can't be sedentary. The system creates massive entropy and massive kind of distress if we stay stuck. And this is key for like conversations. It's key for running. It's key for moving house. If you're stuck, it feels bad. If you move, it can feel better. So moving is key to overall wellness. A diverse environment or a change in environment stimulates the mind. So if you're moving, you're often going to see more things. You're going to have a change of environment. That is a very good way to honor yourself because it is very enriching. Changing an environment, this is why people are very happy when they stare at sunsets and everyone climbs mountains to see the views, because we know that the diversity is a way of honoring that beautiful, bright mind that you have, that it actually relishes and enjoys and feels a sense of wonder and a sense of being present when we change our environments. Go for a walk, even if you're watching a yoga thing on YouTube, change the environment slightly, instead of having a bath normally with the lights on, just put a few candles up. So moving is about change as well. And now when it comes to exercises, for example, or just getting the body going, changes in temperature, so body temperature, when we can become anaerobic or and physiology, they're neuroprotective. We know that a mild amount of exercise is very good for the brain and therefore probably good for offsetting things like anxiety and depression as well. And the thing about moving is don't bite off too much. Just do one small thing first thing in the morning, one small thing. So if you used to sit in bed and drink coffee and doom scroll Twitter or whatever it might be, just do one small thing differently. Get up, maybe walk downstairs, walk up and down the road, maybe do some lunges in the corridor. This honors your body, it honors your mind, it has a long-term gain. And start small little things. I'm not talking about like a dramatic how to lose 50 kgs in 3 weeks. Small iterative movements, very, very healthy. If you've had an authoritarian narrative in your past, like output and is equal worth, don't set big goals because it's going to feel onerous, and then you might feel like you might fail, and then you actually might avoid moving altogether. So know that if that's the history you've had, set small goals, reasonable goals, and goals that don't have big numbers attached to them, and that will make your self-esteem grow as well. And if you've had permissive parenting narratives in your history, start simple and know there might be some setbacks. It's not the end. It's not the end. If you said you were going to do this 2-minute walk tomorrow morning and you don't throw it all away. Just try again the next morning. And these will come down to the self-parenting, which is why self-parenting was number one. We move on from moving, because we have to move, because moving is essential, to this delightful pooch over here behind me. Oh, yes. Commit to radical self-compassion. I love this. I got this line from a psychologist in the States, and I can't remember her name. If I did, I would cite her here. Commit to radical self-compassion. That's what it is. It's not like tiptoe into self-compassion. Apply like radical self-compassion towards yourself. What does that look like? Ban internal dialogue that has words that are limiting or shaming. Shouldn't, should've, must, always, never. This is globalizing language that can instill shame. So check yourself for that kind of, when you're doing this self-parenting and you walk into that room and there's this social engagement and you go, oh, I should have worn something better, or you always are late, or you're never the kind of person that. Ban that language. That language is incredible, and this is radical self-compassion. Embrace imperfection. You're never going to get everything right, and acceptance of the flaws is the real release. Acceptance of your flaws and of your mistakes and of things that you've done in the past. You can make amends for them. You can take care of them. You can go a long way to expressing whatever you need to about them, but you also need to be able to move past them. That is radical self-compassion. My mistakes are part of me. It's who I am. And I embrace the imperfection and the wonder that it is to be human and to be deeply flawed. And this is lovely. You could just spend like half an hour writing a letter to yourself in the future. And of course, the idea is with compassion, with the wills, with the desires that you have for yourself, with a sense of compassion, looking at your past. Maybe the letter goes something like, it was so wonderful to reach you here. I've been thinking about you for a while. You've been through quite a lot. I want to let you know I'm on your side. You can hear the self-compassion. Again, it's very similar to the self-parenting because I'm sitting with myself almost as a second individual and talking to myself in a way that is nurturing and caring. So commit to radical self-compassion. Very important. And allow a process of acceptance to begin. If you need to talk about the dark stuff in your life that you just don't want anyone to know about, if you start making small inroads into that material with someone that's professional and someone that's not going to judge you, of course, then you start being able to move past those events that become this blockade. And that is radical self-compassion, because it says, I will not be held down by this moment. It is part of me, and there may be things I need to do about it, but I can move past it. It's not weighing me down like a big heavy chain around my neck or my feet in concrete. So for the fourth one, I have, and this is really interesting, involve yourself in all decisions. This is one of the best ways that you can actually honor yourself is to put yourself in the decision-making process with everything that happens in your life. Involve yourself in all decisions. This might sound weird, but if we are enmeshed and we have a history of enmeshment, what might happen is we don't involve ourselves. We're on the back foot. We think a lot about what other people will do. To honor yourself, particularly this weekend, because I'm challenging you all, is to involve yourself in all of the decisions that you make. So when factoring an action, someone says there's no milk left and breakfast is screwed because there's no milk. When you're factoring in an action to do something, consider if you are self-inhibiting your own needs and expression. Am I doing something because I want to make other people feel better? Is this what I really want to do? Is this someone else's maybe role or responsibility that I'm just taking on? Sit there for a moment, take a sidebar, self-parent. You can hear how this all comes together. Self-compassion, it's also your weekend. Do you really have to go to the shops now? Can someone else do it? So involve yourself in your own needs and your expressions in all of those actions and decisions. Very important. Are you putting others' needs superior to your own? And this is a tough one, I know, because often if we have, children or people we have to look after, that becomes part of the responsibility. But at some point, please involve yourself in all your decisions. I know it's a funny sentence. Involve yourself in all of those decisions, your needs and your expectations and your emotions. And then I think, because life is complicated and there's a lot, we often have histories, don't be bogged down by this. If you're always like the helper or always the doer, and that takes a huge intrapsychic stress on one, reach at least a fair compromise. You're never going to get this right. We're not going to do it perfectly. I might feel a small amount of guilt. Oh, I couldn't have put myself, I felt like I put myself first there. Reach a compromise. I will go get the milk today. In future, I wonder if that's something that you can do. So we reach a compromise when we involve ourselves in all decisions. And be gentle with yourself. This process, if you have a history of enmeshment or authoritarian parenting, this process can take time. Because it's a slow inviting of myself, my needs, and my expression back into my actual processes of my life to improve my life, to honor myself, And that can take time, and we fudge it a bit because we're human, and that's what we're going to do. I can guarantee you we fudge things. Human beings, we're very good at doing that. That's the one equal. I have sped along today. I was so worried we weren't going to make time, so I sped along like a crazy person. If there are any questions, I'd love to hear them in the chat. The chat is very quiet. I understand that it's a new platform. It's a bit scary, but if you if you'd like to say something, you're more than welcome to. It's really, really wonderful to have you all here, though, I have to say. And please, whatever you do, allow yourself a moment of reflection on this. Don't just suck it in and go, well, Reto said this and this is what I should do. Allow yourself a moment to go, okay, cool. Which one of these 5, as we head into this last one, which one of these 5 works for me? Which one of these 5 seems something that I can do? And so for the last one, and this one it seems quite straightforward, I suppose, is to create. There is no better way to honor yourself than to create. And there's a very interesting underlying psychology behind this. There's a very interesting psychology behind this because Freud, for example, said all you need is work and love. He didn't. That's not what he said. I'm turning Freud into the Beatles. All you need is work and all you need is work and love. Oh wait, don't sing. But I've just done the very thing which actually makes someone feel alive. I've made something visible, something audible, something real in the world. If we don't do that, and Freud from his earliest work said this, we develop melancholia, we lose a sense of self. If I am not making or creating or expressing into the world, why am I even around? This becomes the embryonic thought that starts things like melancholia and eventually depression, because I'm not outputting, my needs aren't being expressed and put on the plate. My expression isn't coming out, so I am static. I am not doing. So when I create, I'm not like saying go and do finger painting because that's going to make you feel alive. It will, but I'm saying it because the act of creation is the act of being human. It is the validation of your existence to create. That's why people that output are generally, and again, output is not equal to worth, but people that can put things into the world are generally happier. So what does this look like? Make visible, audible, and physical your presence on earth. Make visible, audible, physical your presence on earth. And you can choose whatever that looks like in terms of creation. You can choose whatever that looks like. There's some ideas here. Expressions of yourself when made physical build esteem. So, of course, one has to watch for the inner critic. But when I put something into the world, when I write a lyric, when I sing a song, when I'm singing in the shower, I'm putting something into the world. It comes from my intrapsychic world, which no one can see. It doesn't actually exist to the outside world, only to me. And I'm putting it into the world. And that creates a profound sense of meaning for the individual. And that's why, when someone's deeply anxious or depressed, you'll ask them, what are your hobbies? And they'll go, don't have any. And I think the reverse thing has happened. I've stopped putting into the world. So I've stopped getting that feedback loop that I can do, act and think and make in the world. And I've got some silly ideas here. So, make up a little melody on the weekend, do a little jig, do a little fancy dance while you're making dinner, or do a weird walk from the kitchen to the lounge. Warren, hello, good to see you. Welcome to the YouTubes. I'm just going to give the shout outs here it's gone, it's back. Hello, it's good to see you. Welcome back. It's cool to have you here. Namaste, everybody. It's really good to have you here. So and it doesn't have to be big. Remember that if I have a history of authoritarian or neglectful or permissive parenting, I might have fears around the output of these things like, oh, my art won't be good enough, or the lyric I wrote won't be, oh, the music will be funny, or I'm tone deaf, or my voice sounds crap. It's not about that. It's about simple acts of expression. So a melody, a jig, a haiku. Okay, I can't write haikus, but I put it in there because it's a cool word. A doodle, just doodle. Sit in your lounge, let the sun wash over you, and just doodle. It's good to have you here, Warren. Apparently, the feedback loop here is much quicker, which is kind of cool. There's apparently quite a nice kind of quick latency, as they say. Even a crossword, even making a crossword. Doing a crossword. Or a new dish, anything where you are creating. This is a deeply important way to honor yourself, because what it says is, I am not just inert. I am not just a psychology of me. I am also in the world. And if I'm in the world, I honor that by that process. And then I can also look at what I do and then get a feedback loop of esteem, which then builds as well. And I think it's really important. And start small, It's not about measuring how good your dance is or how wonderful your singing is or how interesting your ballet was or on point it was. It's about doing it as an active expression. There is no marking, no grading, no scoring. But you may feel like you want to share it with someone. Just know that if you do share your output with the world, there's a lot more factors systemically that are involved now, specifically if it's people that have their own intrapsychic issues. So just do something this weekend. Grab a piece of paper, grab a napkin, write a little poem, put a thought down, a journal, finger painting, even gardening, for example, is a way of making visible in the world a part that is me, as long as you're doing it out of a sense of joy and creation and not a sense of onerous responsibility because no one else is going to do the garden, which can sometimes happen. And for goodness sake, fill the water jug. That's an inside joke for YouTube that YouTube will not understand, but those of you that are all should have your gold stars will in fact understand. And so those are the five. I'm going to quickly go. I'm going to just quickly zoom through them again. Oh, why can't I? Oh, let's notice that we don't do the rights. We're going to first do. Let's do the rights. So those are the five. So covering all of this, the way to honor oneself. This is kind of almost like the Constitution. If you're going to choose to honor yourself this weekend, which I deeply hope you all will do, this is your Constitution. I have a right to say no without feeling guilty. I have a right to be treated with respect. And I remember that the definition of honoring oneself is to treat oneself with respect. I have a right to make my needs as important as others. I have a right to be accepting of our mistakes and failures. And I have a right not to meet others' unreasonable expectations of me. And these are all so important. They're all so important. And so have a look at these 5 ways that you can honor yourself by either moving, the self-parenting, beginning that self-parenting dialogue, or whether you're going to kind of look at the past and kind of look at those parenting styles that you can slowly shift and adjust by involving yourself in all decisions. Still a funny sentence, but I think you know what I mean. And then finally by creating, by making myself made visible, making my thoughts and my heart and my inner world made visible. All of these things are deeply honoring. And there's other ways you can do it by like having a bath and chilling out and listening to cool music. But that's more like moving, and that's relaxation. You're changing the environment, changing the temperature. So I invite you all to try these. I would love to hear feedback. You can give feedback in the comments if you've given it a go. Just pick one. Don't try to do all of them. Just pick one. I highly recommend the self-parenting. That's got legs. But if you just feel like doing something creative or just outputting expression, Samantha, hello, welcome. It's good to have you here. We are reaching the tail end on the top of this beautiful mountain that we find ourselves today. We are reaching the tail end. But what's important is that if you can start this process of becoming an alliance partner with yourself, having a sidebar when you're feeling anxious with yourself. Imagine yourself as a parent saying to yourself, tell me what's going on. You've arrived at this dinner party and you're feeling anxious. Tell me what's going on. And you have a quick sidebar with yourself away from other people. You learn to create a strong sense of identity around self-parenting. And it really is valuable. And then to move, just do one or two small things, change your environment, move between temperatures, get your body a bit warmed up from a light walk or whatever it might be. All very important. And finally, involve yourself in all decisions. That's the best way to honor yourself. Involve yourself in all decisions and try and create something this weekend that doesn't just sit intrapsychically. Write it down, paint it out, put it on fridge magnets, sing a song, dance in the shower. This is a way of honoring our ability as human beings to integrate into the world, and is deeply, deeply enriching to us as well. And you know what time it is. There's only one thing left I have to say to you all, is that you are all spectacular human beings. You're all beautiful, and I want you to all please have a weekend that is gentle. If it's exciting, if there's some pain, I don't know what is happening in your worlds right now, but allow yourself to be gentle with yourself. Adine, thank you so much. The role of honor is short today, but no less important, because I want to thank you all for coming in. Samantha, great to see you. Adine and Warren, it's so cool to have you guys here. It doesn't feel quite so lonely on a new platform when some familiar people are nearby. That's very, very cool. You're all spectacular, wonderful human beings. And I'll see you all on Monday, and hopefully this will be slick on Monday as well. Have a superb weekend. Goodbye, everyone.